The Galactic Council Chamber was a cathedral of light and shadow, carved into the inner skin of the Dyson sphere. Above the circular floor, the great star Zarathus burned like a caged god, its radiance tamed by layers of energy filters. Delegates from 47 civilizations floated in tiered rings, suspended in grav platforms that swayed ever so slightly in the airless space. High Chancellor Vurith Srrn stood in the central rostrum. His pale, jointed hands clasped behind his back, his frilled neck rigid, he addressed the chamber with a voice like polished stone. "Proceed," he ordered. A shimmering containment field flared to life. Into it drifted a battered silver cylinder, barely a meter long. The probe's hull was blackened, sections warped as though it had passed through fire. Its sensor arrays twitched like broken limbs. "This," Vurith announced, "is the reconnaissance unit dispatched to the uncontacted world known to its inhabitants as Earth." The chamber dimmed. A narrow beam from the probe projected its findings into the open air. For a breath, there was only static. Then came the sound. It was not speech, not code, not the harmonic tones most council probes use to convey data. It was raw and jagged, human voices, tangled together in a rising howl. Some high and cracking, others low and guttural, until the noise became a living thing. Delegates flinched. A few recoiled entirely from their platforms, membranes or scales trembling. The visuals came next. Chaotic flashes. Fire licking the sides of towers. Explosions blossoming in night skies. Figures, human, rushing forward with weapons in hand. Armored vehicles churning through streets. Crowds roaring. The screaming swelled, fractured by bursts of static, and then the images shifted. A vast ocean whipped by a hurricane, buildings collapsing under waves, hands reaching from the foam. Then fire again. And more screaming. One of the smaller delegates, a crystalline being from the Tharn cluster, pulsed red with alarm. "This is war," it said flatly. "It is worse than war," replied an elder of the K'arshar, her voice like dry leaves. "This is madness." Vurith let the noise fill the chamber for another 15 seconds before gesturing sharply. The projection cut out. Silence followed, heavy and brittle. "This," he said, "is the true nature of the humans. An ungoverned volatile species capable of organized violence beyond any seen in recorded galactic history. This probe was built to withstand supernova radiation and quantum storms. It returned, damaged." Across the chamber, an Earth delegate clicked its mandibles. "The audio, what is its source?" Vurith's narrow pupils fixed on the questioner. The probe's linguistic algorithms attempted translation. It failed. The patterns match neither language nor music. The most accurate description is screaming. Low murmurs spread like a wind through dry grass. Several delegates spoke at once. "Quarantine them. Seal the system. Containment before they spread." A tall, spined figure from the Neth Alliance leaned forward. "If this is their peacetime, their war will burn us all." Vurith inclined his head. "I propose emergency deliberation under Protocol 7. The matter will be brought before a tribunal within the next cycle. Until then, Earth remains under full surveillance. No contact is authorized." The vote was swift. The chamber's consensus ring flashed amber. Protocol 7 approved. Vurith's voice hardened. "I will lead the tribunal personally. The evidence is compelling, but for formality's sake, Earth will be granted one representative to answer the charges. Failure to disprove this reality will trigger Containment Protocol 17. A ripple of unease moved through the gathered diplomats. Containment Protocol 17 was not exile. It was erasure. "Session adjourned," Vurith said. The chamber's great doors opened, spilling pale light into the corridor beyond. Delegates drifted away in clusters, their languages folding over one another like waves on a rocky shore. The probe hung in the containment field, still twitching faintly. Its metal skin caught the filtered starlight, throwing jagged reflections across the chamber's empty tiers. Light years away, the sun had just broken over Cascadia Prime. Dr. Miriam Zhao's apartment sat near the edge of the upper terrace, where glass towers curved against the pale blue sky. She was halfway through her first cup of tea when her comm line pulsed with a secure signal. She frowned. The frequency was restricted to off-world diplomatic channels. She set the cup down and accepted the call. A holographic seal dissolved, revealing a man in the charcoal uniform of Earth's Interstellar Liaison Office. His voice carried the clipped precision of someone reading from a script. Dr. Zhao, your credentials in xenolinguistics and cross-species semiotics have been reviewed by the Council Envoy Office. You have been designated Earth's sole representative in an emergency tribunal concerning recent developments. Her brow furrowed. What kind of developments? The Council's probe to Earth has returned. Its report has been classified as alarming. The tribunal will determine our species' future in the galactic community. You depart in 6 hours. Miri leaned back in her chair, the morning light catching in her dark eyes. You're telling me the entire fate of Earth hinges on one meeting I haven't been briefed on, based on a report I haven't seen? That is correct. Her mind flicked to the half-finished translation project on her desk, the tea cooling beside it, the quiet life she had carved out on this crowded, humming planet. She thought about the words species future. I'll need everything you have, she said finally. Data will be transmitted en route. Prepare for immediate departure. The call ended without ceremony. She stared at the empty air where the hologram had been. Somewhere in the back of her mind, an old lecture from her first year of linguistics floated up. Meaning is shaped by context. Without context, even truth can be twisted into a weapon. Whatever the probe had sent back, she would have to untangle it. Quickly. She rose, crossing to the console to initiate travel clearance. Her reflection in the glass was sharp, eyes steady. She didn't know yet what the Council had seen, but she already knew how they would see it. And she would have to change that. The departure terminal of Cascadia Prime's orbital lift was a glass-walled cylinder suspended above the sprawling megacity. Sunlight spilled over the ocean beyond, flashing across the silver skin of ships rising and falling through the atmosphere. Dr. Miriam Zhao stood by the security gate with a single bag slung over her shoulder, scanning the boarding list on the terminal's transparent display. Her name was at the top. Below it, the manifest was almost entirely alien. Council attachés, envoys, translators. No other humans. A security officer in Navy armor approached. Dr. Zhao, follow me. He led her past the gate to a private embarkation platform. A shuttle waited there, its hull an unfamiliar shade of metallic blue, angular in a way human designs never were. The hatch opened with a soft exhale. Inside, the air was cooler, faintly metallic. Seats curved into the bulkhead like grown rather than built structures. A tall, insectiform crew member adjusted the harness at her station without speaking. The pilot, a compact reptilian in a charcoal jumpsuit, glanced back. Human passenger secured? Secured, the crew member replied. Miri fastened her restraints and kept her expression calm, though the realization pressed in, she was leaving Earth alone, without even a diplomatic escort from her own government. Whatever this tribunal was, it wasn't going to be a friendly exchange of ideas. The shuttle lifted without shudder or roar, slipping through the troposphere in a smooth climb. Earth's blue curve fell away beneath them. A display lit in front of her, showing a data packet marked, Probe Extract, Priority. She opened it. The first file was audio, distorted, almost painful at high volume. Layers of voices, some shouting, some exclaiming in tones that might be joy or rage depending on interpretation. The second file was visual, brief, chaotic sequences she recognized instantly. Football matches, wildfire evacuations, launch footage from the Mars program. All jumbled, stripped of context, and overlaid with that unrelenting sound. She shut the file. The problem was obvious. To anyone without cultural knowledge, this was not resilience or celebration, it was violence. The pilot's voice broke the silence. First time off your world? No, Miri said, keeping her gaze on the darkening stars. But first time representing it. The pilot didn't respond, but the faint twitch of his tail suggested amusement, or pity. The Dyson sphere's inner surface unfolded like an impossible dream. An artificial horizon arched in every direction, studded with cities, forests, and rivers running in impossible curves. The great star hung at the center, steady and golden, casting even light over the vast interior. The council's capital city floated on a column of white alloy anchored to the sphere's skin. Towering spires curved toward the sky, their surfaces alive with light. The shuttle slid into an approach corridor flanked by defensive satellites the size of human space stations. Miri kept her breathing steady. The structure radiated authority, centuries of power condensed into metal and light. The docking bay was silent but for the echo of her boots on the pale floor. An escort awaited, 3 beings of different species, all in the same deep green diplomatic livery. At their center stood High Chancellor Vurith. His long frame was wrapped in ceremonial black, silver filaments tracing the ridges of his frilled neck. His pale eyes fixed on her with the cool assessment of someone measuring a dangerous specimen. "Dr. Zhao," he said. The translator embedded in the air at her shoulder caught his words, rendering them in a neutral tone. "You will address me as Chancellor. You understand why you are here." "To defend my species from annihilation," Miri said evenly. A flicker passed over his features, either surprise or annoyance. "To clarify misconceptions," he corrected. "The Council prefers order to destruction." "I've seen the files," she replied. "You call it misconception. I call it missing context." "You will have opportunity to speak tomorrow," Vurith said. "Until then, you will remain in your assigned quarters. Council access is restricted to authorized personnel." The escort led her through high corridors where the walls shifted faintly, as if breathing. Glimpses into side chambers showed beings of every form, scaled, feathered, crystalline, moving in slow, deliberate conversation. None approached her. Her quarters were spacious but sterile, a single sleeping platform, a desk embedded with a hollow interface, a viewport opening onto the sphere's vast inner surface. A sealed tray of food rested on the desk, clearly intended to meet human nutritional standards. The door closed behind her with a soft lock. She didn't bother checking. It would be secure. She activated the holo and called up the probe data again. This time, she slowed the playback to a crawl, filtering the audio into separate layers. Beneath the distorted shouting, she caught faint patterns, snatches of melody, crowd chants from sports events, fragments of speech in multiple languages. It wasn't screaming. It was everything at once: anger, celebration, fear, triumph. The AI had flattened it into one signal, stripping away meaning until it became a wall of noise. Her fingers hovered over the console. If the Council had based its judgment on this, the tribunal would be stacked against her from the start. A chime sounded. The interface shifted to display a short text. "Tribunal commences in 14 hours. Prepare your statement." Miri closed the message. She didn't have a statement yet. She had a problem to solve, and barely half a day to do it. She leaned back, staring through the viewport. The star at the heart of the sphere burned steadily, indifferent to the small lives orbiting it. Somewhere out there, 47 civilizations waited to decide whether her world would join them, or vanish entirely. The tribunal chamber was shaped like a vast amphitheater, its tiers spiraling upward into the golden haze of the Dyson sphere's inner atmosphere. A column of white light rose from the center dais, pulsing faintly in time with the chamber's recorded minutes. Delegates filled their grav platforms, hovering in rings that glimmered like suspended constellations. Dr. Miriam Zhao stepped onto the central platform. Her boots echoed once before the floor dampened all sound. The light around her dimmed to isolate the tribunal space. At the far end, High Chancellor Vurith stood at his lectern, tall and rigid, the ceremonial silver tracery along his neck catching the filtered starglow. He inclined his head just enough to acknowledge her presence. "Representative of Earth," he said, his voice smooth, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, "you have been summoned to answer charges of instability, excessive aggression, and high probability of hostile expansion." Miri met his gaze without flinching. "I understand the allegations." Vurith gestured toward the hovering probe beside him. "Let us examine the evidence." The chamber darkened entirely. A projection blossomed in the air above the dais, the probe's corrupted footage, sharpened for maximum clarity. First came the rocket launches. Towering plumes of fire erupted against night skies, engines flaring with controlled violence. Without context, they looked like ballistic missiles in full assault. The crowd murmured in several languages, their translators whispering unease. Next, the sports footage. Packed stadiums, roaring fans, bodies colliding on grassy fields. The roar of the crowd, compressed and distorted, merged seamlessly with the screaming from the previous file. Delegates shifted on their platforms. A crystalline Tharn delegate dimmed its inner light, a sign of distress. Then the disaster scenes. Wildfires engulfing forests, civilians sprinting from walls of flame, helicopters dropping water. To a viewer unfamiliar with firefighting, the images could easily be mistaken for a city under aerial bombardment. Layered over it all, the same relentless sound, voices merged into one storm of noise. Vurith let the footage run for 2 full minutes, uninterrupted. When it ended, the silence was heavier than before. "This," he said, "is the unaltered report of the reconnaissance probe. It recorded only what occurred. No embellishment. No distortion." Miri's hands tightened at her sides. It recorded without understanding. A recording is not the same as truth. Vuritha's frilled neck stiffened. "Explain." "Context," she said. "What you see as weapons are exploration vessels. What you hear as screams are human voices in celebration, grief, and urgency. What you call attacks are emergency responses to natural disasters." A delegate from the Prith Collective, its translucent skin showing pale veins beneath, tilted its head. "You claim the probe's analysis is flawed?" "I claim the analysis is incomplete," Miri replied. Vurith raised one long finger. "Then tell us, Dr. Zhao, why does every scene depict destruction or violent motion? Why is there so little that speaks of peace?" "Because that is what your probe sought," she said. "It was designed to record anomalies, energy spikes, movement patterns associated with conflict. It didn't search for art, dialogue, or cooperation." The Kr Shar elder leaned forward. "You admit violence exists, then?" "I do," Miri said plainly. "Violence exists on Earth. But so does creation, compassion, and restraint. We are not one thing. Neither are any of you." A ripple of low speech moved through the chamber. Some delegates nodded slightly, others withdrew into stillness. Vuritha's voice was calm, but the edge beneath it was unmistakable. "Your argument depends on the assumption that humans choose when to be violent. And yet, your history suggests otherwise. Wars spanning continents. Weapons capable of planetary ruin. Repeated environmental collapses of your own making. Tell us, if given access to the galactic network, what stops you from exporting that chaos?" Miri stepped closer to the dais, keeping her voice level. "The same thing that stops any civilization from destroying itself entirely. The understanding that survival depends on balance. We've stood at the brink more than once. We pulled back every time. We're still here." A low hiss came from one of the Neth Alliance representatives, its spines rattling. "For now." Vurith let the reaction settle, then looked back to her. "You will have an opportunity to present counter-evidence in the next session. Until then, this chamber accepts the probe's findings as provisionally accurate. The presumption is against your species. You must change it." The declaration was a calculated blow. It told the chamber that she began from a position of guilt, not neutrality. "I'll change it," Miri said, the words measured, not defiant. Vurith inclined his head as if granting her a favor. "Then you may prepare. Tomorrow, you will have the floor." The light brightened. The session was over. Grav platforms detached from their tiers, delegates drifting toward the exits in small clusters. As she stepped from the dais, a soft voice came from behind her. "You have a difficult audience." She turned. A tall, narrow figure with pale blue skin stood a few steps away, its eyes the color of polished copper. The insignia on its shoulder marked it as a data technician. "I've seen worse," Miri said. The figure gave a brief tilt of the head. "Perhaps. But worse usually doesn't decide the fate of an entire world." She considered him for a moment. You work with the probe data? I maintain the archive, he said. Name is Kelleth. Miri studied his expressionless face. Do you believe what they showed in there? Kelleth's copper eyes flicked toward the departing delegates. I believe what's in the archive is not all the probe recorded. The rest is stored differently. Access requires authorization. From Vureth. From the Chancellor, yes. Or someone with clearance and a reason to use it. Miri's pulse quickened. And what would be a good reason? Truth, Kelleth said simply. Though truth is not always welcome. Before she could press further, he moved away into the flow of delegates. She left the chamber, her mind already turning over possibilities. If there was more data, it could change everything, but only if she could get to it. Her assigned escort met her at the exit and led her back toward her quarters. She kept her pace even, hiding the urgency curling in her chest. The corridors of the Dyson Sphere's central spire were never truly dark. Thin veins of bioluminescent material pulsed under the glass floor, mapping a soft glow across the walls. Dr. Miriam Zhao walked between her two assigned escorts, their insectal armor clicking softly with each step. She kept her breathing slow, the pace unhurried. Inside, she was counting minutes. Kelleth's cryptic offer had been deliberate. He wouldn't have said those words in the chamber unless he believed she could act on them. At her quarters, the escorts stepped aside. The door sealed with a hiss. She crossed to the console, scanning the data feed scrolling across its surface. Council news summaries, unclassified star maps, procedural notices. All safe, sterile, useless. The calm light flickered once, then went steady. She tapped it. Kelleth's face appeared, shadowed by a dim room. Do you still want access? Yes, she said. Then meet me in Maintenance Junction 9, Level 74. 20 minutes. The line cut. She checked the hall. The escorts were gone. Probably assumed she'd stay put until the next session. Good. The walk to Level 74 took her through industrial sectors far from the polished corridors of the Council. Here, the air smelled faintly metallic, the hum of power conduits steady underfoot. Few beings passed her, and those who did were workers, eyes down, busy with tools or transport crates. Kelleth waited by a pressure door marked with hazard glyphs. Inside, he said, scanning a card against the panel. The door slid open to a narrow chamber lined with dormant consoles and sealed crates. Archive access is on the next level down, he told her. The security is not forgiving. You have clearance? Partial, he said. Enough to get us close. He pulled a flat, black device from his coat and pressed it against a wall panel. The glyphs shifted, then dissolved into a thin vertical slit. Kelleth stepped through, she followed. They emerged into a vault-like space, its ceiling lost in shadow. Cylinders floated in magnetic suspension, each holding strips of crystalline memory. Kelleth moved to a central terminal. The probe's full dataset is fragmented across multiple archives. What you saw in the chamber was filtered through a violence detection protocol. That's all the delegates were shown. And the rest? She asked. He keyed in a sequence. A wall projection flared to life, rolling images from the probe, untouched. Fields of wheat rippling in sunlight. Children chasing kites along a beach. Engineers assembling a solar array in orbit. An elderly couple planting trees in the ruins of a burned forest. Miri felt a tightness in her chest. Why hide this? Because, Kelleth said, it complicates the case against you. She stepped closer to the projection. I need copies. He hesitated. You understand the risk? I understand that without this, Earth's future is already decided. Kelleth slid a data crystal into the terminal. As it filled, the chamber's lighting shifted, an automated warning. Security sweep, he said quickly. We have 3 minutes. The crystal's glow intensified. Miri watched the progress bar climb. 90%. 93. A sharp tone cut through the air. Kelleth's voice was calm but fast. They're coming here directly. Do not speak unless I do. The vault door split open, revealing two tall figures in silver council armor. Their visors hid their faces. "Keleth Taran," one said, voice filtered and flat. "You are outside your clearance zone." "I was ordered to perform a systems check on the archive stabilizers," Keleth replied smoothly. The representative from Earth was sent to observe the process. The guard's gaze moved to Miri. "Observation does not include data extraction." Keleth tapped the console. "No data extraction. System diagnostics only." Miri kept her expression neutral. Her hand, hidden behind her coat, slid the completed crystal into a concealed pocket. The guard stepped forward, scanning the terminal. After a pause, one nodded. "Ensure the system check is logged. Then vacate the premises." They left as silently as they had arrived. The door sealed. Keleth exhaled slowly. "You have what you came for?" "Yes," she said. He shut down the terminal. "Then you must be careful. If you present this directly, Vurith will claim it's fabricated. You'll need corroboration from their own archives to prove it's authentic." Miri frowned. "Which means I have to make them admit they already have it." Keleth gave a small nod. "That is the harder task." She slipped the crystal into a secure inner seam of her coat. "Hard doesn't matter. Survival does." They retraced their path in silence until they reached the public corridors. Before they parted, Keleth said quietly, "If you succeed, remember this moment. Truth rarely travels alone. It brings enemies with it." The council chamber's ceiling arched so high it seemed to vanish into a haze of shifting light. Rows of alien delegates sat in concentric rings, their bodies a spectrum of shapes and colors. In the center, the tribunal dais floated above the polished floor like a hovering island. Dr. Miriam Zhao stepped onto it alone. The air here was cool, almost cold, the sound of her boots swallowed by the space around her. High Chancellor Vurith stood opposite, his tall frame draped in the deep blue of council authority. His narrow eyes regarded her as one might study a dangerous animal behind a thin barrier. Vurith's voice carried easily. "The matter before us is clear. The Terran probe returned evidence of extreme instability and violence. Containment Protocol 17 is the prudent response." He gestured to the suspended holoscreens. The same brutal images from earlier sessions filled the air: missiles firing, cities burning, athletes grappling in bloody sport. Delegates shifted, murmuring, their expressions a mix of wariness and disgust. Miri waited until the last clip ended before she spoke. "You've seen those images before," she said. "But you haven't seen all of them." Vurith's gaze sharpened. "The Council has viewed the relevant data. Introducing further irrelevant footage wastes." "No," she cut in, her tone crisp. "What you've seen is edited. Context stripped away. Today, you'll see what the probe truly recorded." A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward, others narrowed their eyes. She withdrew the data crystal, holding it up so all could see. "This isn't my copy. This is from your own archives. Verified. Time-stamped." That last word landed hard. She saw a flicker of discomfort in several seats. Keleth had been right. They'd recognize their own metadata. Miri slotted the crystal into the dais interface. The holoscreens shifted. First came the same missile launch, but the camera lingered. The projectile arced upward, deployed solar arrays, and settled into orbit, a communication satellite. Engineers below cheered. Then the burning city, but the next frame showed humans forming a chain through smoke, passing buckets of water, pulling strangers from debris. Combat sports gave way to the victor pulling their opponent to their feet, both laughing, sweat mingling with the smear of paint from a charity match. The chamber quieted. Miri kept her voice steady. "Your probe saw chaos and assumed hostility. It didn't understand we fight storms as we fight each other, directly, fiercely, and not always cleanly. That's survival, not malice." She gestured, and the final clip began. The screen showed a domed settlement under a rust-red sky. Wind howled across Martian plains. Inside the dome, Teams in patched suits worked on a half-built terraforming array. Their movements were precise despite the strain of thin air and gravity. The probe's microphone had captured the distorted sounds the Council had called screams. But now, with the raw file, the audio was clear. Voices in harmony, rough, imperfect, human, singing. The melody carried over clanging tools and the hiss of pressurized valves. Miri let it play. No one moved. When the song ended, she said, that was recorded during a solar storm that threatened to wipe out the colony. They sang while racing to stabilize the shield array. Every voice you heard was risking their life to keep the others breathing. She looked directly at Vurith. That's humanity. We're loud, we're stubborn, and we do not go quietly, not even into the dark. A long silence followed. Finally, a delegate with translucent skin rose. High Chancellor, the presented evidence contradicts the claim of unmitigated aggression. I move to delay Containment Protocol 17 pending full review. Another voice joined in, then another. Opposition was no longer just a handful. Vuritha's jaw tightened. Delay invites risk. Earth's unpredictability remains a danger. Miri stepped closer, her voice low but carrying. Unpredictable isn't the same as dangerous. Sometimes it's the only reason we survive. The Chancellor's gaze lingered on her, cold and assessing. Then he spoke to the chamber. Proceed to vote. Symbols lit up across the delegates' consoles. The tall hollow at the center tallied the results in real time. Yes, containment. No, probationary contact. The columns crept upward, neck and neck. Miri forced herself not to watch the numbers, keeping her eyes on the delegates instead. At last, the final symbol appeared. No had edged out yes by a fraction. Vuritha's voice was like iron. By the narrowest margin, Earth will remain uncontained. Probationary contact is authorized. This tribunal is adjourned. The chamber's lights shifted to neutral tones. Conversations erupted, some wary, others curious. As the delegates filed out, Vurith passed her. His words were quiet enough for only her to hear. You've won a reprieve, not safety. We will be watching. She met his eyes. We've been watched since we learned to make fire. We're still here. He moved on without reply. Keleth found her in the outer hall. You did it, he said. We did it, she corrected. He inclined his head. Then I'll send you home. The transport's viewport framed the Dyson sphere's inner sun as they departed. Miri sat back, the tension finally bleeding from her shoulders. Hours later, Earth's familiar blue filled the glass. Her calm chimed, a message from Keleth. Some in the Council envy what you showed them. They won't say it yet, but they will. She allowed herself a small, tired smile. Just wait until they meet the rest of us. Outside, the planet turned, oblivious to how close it had come to silence. That concludes the story with a sharp HFY payoff, clean resolution, and a lingering sense of possibility for future encounters.